Four Boys Garage back here with our LG Studio oven. We had the F9 code going on. Oven would not reach the set temp in a certain period of time, which really doesn't tell you a whole heck of a lot. And we're gonna get into it. So I've been getting that F9 code and going through some of the process. We'll take you into the horror show here. The igniter is glowing, working. The gas valve became a suspicion of mine. Maybe it had failed and was not opening and releasing the gas. And figured out that there is some readings, and we'll get into that in a little bit, for testing the existing igniter. But I guess first things first, the broiler still was working, so that sort of ruled out that gas valve. And I think that what I want to do is go at the igniter. I learned that the gas valve needs a certain amount of amperage pull before it will open. And since the broiler was working, which the igniter must be functioning properly, and that means that the gas valve or safety valve must be also functioning properly, it made me believe that maybe the igniter, even though it's glowing and working and sometimes lighting and sometimes not, maybe it was just weak. It hadn't failed completely, but just was worn out. And so that's why we're gonna go at the igniter here and do some testing. All right, first thing we're gonna do is remove this cover. We already have the unit pulled out because you do need to access both the inside and the back. Actually, first thing you really wanna do is pop this clip up here on both sides and then raise the door up to about 45 degrees and maybe even mostly closed, and then pull upward, and that will release the door. So be ready for it. It's kind of heavy, but it's gonna be a lot easier to work on this once the door is removed. Then we'll get back to where we can reach, and we'll pop all those screws off of that cover where we can access the burner and do our first test. Little tip and reminder, leave this screw in the top until last when you're removing this outer cover here. And also, don't over tighten these on this enameled finish. It will crack and chip right off. This stuff is very hard, so be careful about that. All right, we're able to easily open and find the igniter here on this unit. These two outer covers come off. But a quick way to test this thing is the amperage and see how many amps it's pulling. This should be pulling, I think it's 3 minimum to 3.6 is the range on the safety gas valve. And if your igniter is weakening, it will still glow, but not be pulling enough amperage. And so you can't do this all at once, but we'll set this thing on amps and clip one of these wires, and we're actually going to push the button set to bake and get this thing to trigger and test to see if we're at least hitting 3 amps. The reason that you get intermittent firing and the F9 code is occasionally this thing, I think, hits enough amperage to open the gas valve and light, and sometimes it doesn't. But also a good indicator is our broiler still works fine. It ignites, meaning the gas valve's not failed. It's not drawing enough amperage. This element should be pulling 3 minimum to 3.3, I think, or 3.6 to open the gas valve, and that's why this thing won't ignite. It is glowing, but it's not pulling enough amperage to trigger the gas valve. All right, we've tested this igniter, not pulling enough amperage. Sadly, you can get to the igniter very easily from here, but not the plug. And you won't be able to fit it through that space. Anyway, so it's gonna require pulling out the oven to actually access the backside, get to the plug, and get it connected. All right, we grabbed this new replacement igniter, Amazon, and it was like 35 bucks. The OE, which we use a lot. I mean, we really are cooking and baking a lot. And this thing survived a good 6 years. It's like $200 for that one. And I wasn't really sure, so I went with the cheap one. I thought while I had it apart, I would put a new one in if that was in fact the problem. And then I will be ordering the OE, I think, and have that in hand. People say these cheaper replacements just don't last very long. So this one gave us a good 6 years, every bit of $200 of value. I think not have to do this again. So I'm gonna put this one in for now, see how long it rides, and have the OE one waiting. The OE part number here is the MEE61841403. I think was the number I came up with for select LG models. This one is RWMEE, repair wares. They've added their RW to the OE. Anyway, we'll put a link to this one. 35 bucks. It had pretty good reviews. I don't think any of them score as well as an OE, but for the price, this is 1/6 the cost. And for purposes of throwing parts at this thing, just to have in hand, if we got it apart and we're able to diagnose it, I wanted just something, but certainly didn't want to potentially waste a $200 part. But we'll throw a link in this for this in the description. And you have to be very careful with these igniters. This part is super fragile, and just a fracture will kill it. So the best thing to do is going to be probably get this old one unmounted, mount the new one, and go from there. All right, I got this igniter loose. The screw is out, but there's still a tab right there that still wants to hang on to it, and you can't really get it situated right to get it taken off of here. So it's attached to the actual burner. So I think from the back side, when we're working on the plug, we're gonna have to take this burner loose and pop it out. All right, on the back side here, I've got this plate taken off, and here's the burner. I think this is the screw that's holding that burner from sliding forward, and will allow us to both pull this connector through that hole, but also separate the burner from that burner housing or whatever enough to swing that thing up and off the tab. All right, I got the screw out, and the burner slid right out with some help on the other side. One of the 4 boys' hands right there, and he was able to pull that through. Now we'll just unplug this and send the wire through. Okay, perfect. All right, have the burner taken loose from that back plate there, and should be able to slide this right up and off. Yep, no noticeable cracks or anything. I think just weakened, and time's taken its toll. Lots and lots of use over 6 years, 7 years maybe. All right, got the new one next to the old one. Verified our plug is the same. Good to go there. We do have a small clip here. We're gonna take that screw off and put that clip onto the new one. This is definitely where you're gonna wanna practice being super careful. This one's dead, but certainly don't wanna damage the new one. All right, got this off of the old one. That little tab needs to slip back down through there and then thread back in. All right, at this point, we'll just go ahead and get this installed back to the burner and get it secured with the screw, and then we'll reinstall the burner, which is just gonna push through again and reattach that screw. Yep, go ahead and push. Push? Yeah, might need to wiggle a little bit. Yep, perfect. All right, the new igniter plugged through. Burner slid back into place. Burner back in place. Already has the igniter mounted to it. I'm gonna get these screws in and secure the burner back in place, and then go through our test again. I got the power back on. We're gonna test this new igniter. Make sure to have the gas off still. We turned the gas off prior to that first one. Have the extra pair of hands hold the door switch closed so that this thing will work. We don't have the door on here. No, we're already over 3. We're not even glowing yet. Oh yeah, 3.6, right where you want to be. Thing's got a little bit of a burn off smell going on, but we already hit where we need to be, so we know we're good. It's definitely a little bit whiter than it used to be, so we're gonna go ahead and stop. We've definitely hit our amperage. We're over 3, and that should open the gas valve. All right, at this point, we're just gonna need to reassemble everything in reverse order. The fan's kind of still going, as it does for a period of time after turning off, if you will. So there's already cut off now. So anyway, we're just gonna get this burner assembly cover plate back on, and then the overall cover in reverse order, and takes care of this, and should work just fine once we get it all reassembled and turn the gas back on. All right, quick note, the 2 side screws have actual threaded screws on the 2 sides, right and left. The bottom 2 and the top are more of a coarse thread, so when you take those out, that'll sort of be the order they go back. No idea why they would do that, but that's where they are. All right, new igniter in, all reassembled, plugged in, gas on. We are going to go ahead and go to bake and start and see what we can see here. Seems like it's glowing a little bit brighter than it ever has. Let me turn off that oven light. Oh yeah, it's better. Yeah, that's glowing quite a bit brighter. Oh yeah, we're lit. I don't know what that was, 30 seconds, something like that. Very fast. The fact that it's lighting at all right now means we fixed it, but I think we already knew that with the test. And now we've got ignition, and we've got it set to 350. We'll let it run and see how long it takes to get to temp. All right, we're already at 140 and we're about 1:13 in. All right, 3 minutes after ignition and we're already 205. All right, 350, 7:33 after a ignition. So, I mean, that's from a dead cold start to the set point in, I think, what is that, a grand total of just under 8 minutes then, between hitting start, waiting for ignition, and then hitting 350. So there's no question that the delay had always been a weak igniter. And the reason we did that was kind of to just give you an idea of how long it should take with a healthy igniter.